Hey everybody, it's Eric J. Olson once again coming at you live for another episode of the Managing Partners podcast. And today I have Ethan Brown joining us all the way from California. Hey Ethan.
Hey Eric, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are things out there?
It's getting better. The pandemic's calmed down. The weather's turned nice. It's not a lot to complain about.
No, I thought the weather was always nice in sunny California.
It is always nice. It gets nicer. We're very spoiled out here. The things we complain about, you would probably consider to be a lovely day, and we pick at 50 and sunny because it's too cold.
I was just talking to another lawyer out of Florida, and I was telling him how I feel bad for my mom when she has to put on socks in the winter. It gets that cold, So I kind of think it's like that in California as well. What part of California are you in?
We're in LA.
Very nice. Excellent. Are you near downtown, in downtown?
We're on the west side, so we're kind of on the cusp of Santa Monica, so in the Brentwood, Santa Monica area, if you know LA.
Cool. I really don't, but I would imagine the closer you are to the center, the more difficult it would be to get in and out.
Yes, that's true. We have the benefit of being on the west side, so we're on the side closest to the water, which is what attracts me. And we live pretty close to the office is very close to where I live, which in LA, avoiding traffic is the gold standard. And so I'm happy to be nearby the office.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself on a personal level. Maybe where you live. You already mentioned kind of close to the office, hobbies, families, thing like that.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Southeast and circuitously found my way to Southern California via college at University of Michigan and law school in Boston. Came out here in 2001, live on the west side of LA, love the outdoors. It's the best part of being in Southern California, the hiking, the beaches, and that sort of thing. I have two kids who are grown up now. My son, Jason, is 19 and is in college, he's a freshman. And my daughter is in San Francisco studying with the San Francisco Conservatory. She wants to go into fleet performance. So that's a little bit about me and the family.
Very nice. And let's hear about your firm. So what are your practice areas? What's your primary expertise? How big are you? Do you have multiple offices, things like that?
Sure. So we're a single office firm in Los Angeles, although as we were talking a little bit off camera, we do have lawyers who are about the country a little bit. We have lawyers in New York and also one in Hawaii. The firm is business litigation focused. It's a boutique. We have about 20 lawyers and staff total, a little bit more than 15 lawyers. We're on the cusp of growing a little bit here. But we do all forms of business litigation. My personal practice tends to be in intercompany disputes. I was a partner at a big firm doing securities litigation, so I do a lot of the kind of intercompany types of disputes. And I also found my way into doing a lot of insurance coverage work on the policyholder side. So businesses whose insurance carrier, for whatever reason, ends up not paying off a claim, it sort of falls into my bailiwick. But we do across the firm, we do almost every area of what I would describe as business litigation.
What are some examples of intercompany disputes?
Yeah, so my all-time favorite, because it lasted forever, was a case where I represented a couple of folks who were management of a privately held company. It had been founded by a gentleman and his wife. The gentleman died and left the company to his wife. She did not have a lot of business expertise, so my clients came in and ran the company for her and made her incredibly wealthy. Ended up selling a big portion of the company for about $250 million. And they kept a slice of the company that the buyer didn't want to take, and they started building up that slice into a pretty solid functional business. And there ended up being a whole series of disputes between the founder's wife, who was now a significant shareholder of the company, and management, who also owned a significant share, and a private equity firm who owned a piece. So there was sort of a two on one side, one on the other side, series of disputes about management, financing, payouts, all kinds of different things. How much management would get paid. We ended up having 7 lawsuits in 2 different states over the course of about 5 years, and ultimately managed to extract a buyout and get the founder's wife out of the company. But that's sort of an example of the kind of thing that I would do.
Yeah, I can imagine that gets real nasty when you have multiple partners like that with different visions and different objectives. And it's, I have a partner, and when we merged companies, my business lawyer told me, like, it's really very similar to a marriage. And once you get married, it's in a business, it can be extremely difficult to unwind it.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny that you say that. I oftentimes compare these sort of cases to divorces, because these companies are oftentimes sort of the baby of the, so to speak, of the people who started it, and they feel a real emotional attachment to it. So it's not always just money. It's money plus a lot of emotions that go into it. And in this particular case, I think that I was talking about, I think that was a lot of it. I think the founder's wife kind of felt like these were people who were supposed to take care of her, not just run the business and look out after their own financial interest as well.
It gets very personal, that's for sure. Yeah, that's interesting. So you said 15 attorneys, but kind of spread out throughout the United States or beyond?
We're mostly in Southern California. I would say I think 12 of our lawyers are in Southern California, but we do have 3 that are in different locations. I think ultimately we'd be interested in growing the firm to be in some of the other financial centers, New York. We have 2 lawyers there. We haven't opened officially there, but we do some cases there. Certainly the LA population centers of San Diego, the Bay Area, Orange County, I think would all be potentially in our future if things go according to plan.
Very nice. Curious, did you bring on those attorneys when they lived near you and like worked out of the office, then they moved, or did you?
Yeah. So there's different situations, but the lawyer who was in Hawaii was at a large firm in town, Latham Watkins, which is where I was. I was a partner there, so I know a lot of people from there. And Jackie wanted to live in Hawaii. She grew up there, wanted to continue to do the same type of work she was doing at Latham, was very happy there, doing well, but just didn't want to live in LA. And so we were able to give her that opportunity to function, in Hawaii. So she's pretty much been in Hawaii the whole time she's been with us. One of our New York lawyers are different. One was here for a long time and wanted to move back home. He was from New York originally. The other, we had a bunch of work in New York, so we hired a local lawyer in New York to work with us on a sort of part-time basis, and the relationship just grew. She was great. We liked her. She liked us, and so we made that a more formal, long-term relationship. So she's always been in New York.
Interesting. That's very cool. And what about like COVID? We talked a little bit beforehand about COVID and the impact on the office, and how are you handling people in the office and people coming back or not coming back?
Yeah, I think we've always prided ourselves on being a place that looked at people individually and in all respects, compensation, where they want to work. We try to make it work for talented people, and we kind of looked at COVID sort of the same way. For a time period, we had to shut down completely in terms of being in the office. We had people working remotely all throughout the pandemic. But we first moved everybody out. But then as things got a little bit better, we started talking to folks about, is this working for you? Is this not working for you? Do we need to do something different from a technological perspective? And we found out that we had 2 staff people who were really, really struggling to work from home. It just wasn't a good environment for them to work at home. And we had one partner who had young children who also struggled to work from home. And we brought those people back in much earlier than everybody else. With respect to other people, we've given them the option. We haven't made anybody come back. If you're working from home and you're working there successfully, that's fine. And I think we're certainly looking at the space from the perspective of what we'll do long term. I think we'll probably go to a more inherently flexible working situation where we have some office space, but we maybe don't have assigned offices or don't have very many. and have floater situations where people can work at home when they can work at home, and when they need to come in the office, they've got a place to land, and try to work at it that way, as opposed to, sort of the traditional assigned window offices for every lawyer, when a lot of them are pretty happy working at home and are pretty efficient working from home.
Yeah, I would imagine, especially if you're talking about potentially opening an office in New York City area and in other areas of the United States, and maybe like smaller offices instead of having one massive office in one or two locations, maybe multiple smaller offices. I would imagine that's kind of a trend that you kind of either see happening in the law industry, or or maybe are you thinking about going down that path? Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we're really looking for, is to try to find, office space. And, we obviously have to find the talent first, but ultimately, we were thinking about, finding a nice office with nice reception, a couple of nice conference rooms, and then a handful of, offices that we can cycle multiple people through and use, as we need it, have a smaller footprint in a bunch of different places. Yeah. We were even thinking about doing that in LA, about having a small office downtown, because the courts are down there. A couple of my partners are a little bit closer to downtown than they are the west side. And, having the ability to have a small flexible space there and on the west side, as opposed to just having one big, as you say, monolithic office space on the west side that maybe doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds like certainly you've embraced technology, probably a lot of cloud computing. What are some other trends that you're seeing happening in the legal industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think geographic flexibility is one of them. We talked about that a little bit, but I noticed one of the big firms just came out in the last week or so saying, we're looking for talent anywhere. It doesn't matter where you live. So I think there's going to be a lot more of a removal of people saying, I'm a California lawyer, I have to be living in California, I have to be living in one particular, locale. So I think there's going to be a lot more geographic flexibility. I think we were on the front edge of that. In some ways, I'm not happy to see other firms jumping onto it, because I think it's a competitive, advantage that we had. I think there's always going to be that sort of, dichotomy in terms of the efficiency of, you've got the big firm in some cases that really need to be handled by a giant firm because they're enormous. They just require a gigantic team. And those cases that, that we often handle that might be high stakes, might be significant, but, a couple of lawyers can handle, and can do it in a much more efficient way.
Yeah.
So, we're trying to land in that kind of niche of, maybe not an antitrust case that requires 100 lawyers looking at documents, but it's a high stakes case that a small team can do.
The sweet spot for you and where your firm's at right now, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, like here at Array Digital, we're the same way. We know that our clients need to be a certain size, and we've kind of pegged that at about $2 million in revenue. But it can't be from there up. It has to be kind of capped out at some point. Like if Coca-Cola were to come to us, like, we just don't have the capability, right?
Yeah.
So it's somewhere between 2 million and Coca-Cola, and we've kind of said around 20 to 30 million is probably about the right size for us.
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
So I think it's about finding a niche that kind of makes sense, and it'll be interesting to see where I think the hard spot in some ways, I think, is almost kind of in between. I think it's almost easier to be small, nimble, boutique, or gigantic. I'm always kind of interested to see how the firms that kind of try to live in that middle space, how they manage.
Speaking of gigantic firms, is that part of your 5 or 10-year plan to grow into a bigger firm?
I think we'd like to be bigger. I'd like to fill out some expertise in LA that I still feel like would be helpful. We do some entertainment stuff, but we're on the west side of LA. I mean, it's entertainment central. I think we could build out that part of the practice a little bit more. I think I'd love to have a white collar lawyer at some point. I just think some of what we do touches on some of those issues, and I've got some experience in that area, but I was never a former AUSA or anything like that. So I'd be interested in that. I do think there's some. I think our model works well. I think it's we've grown it pretty quickly over, not that many years. And, I'd like to see us try to manage that in a few other, business and financial centers. I don't ever imagine us getting huge. I mean, I think the big question for us really ultimately is, do we try to do something other than be a business litigation shop? We're good at that. We've done that. We're successful at that. I think it has a lot of advantages. I mean, we get a lot of referrals from big firms. It's very easy to sort of tell the story of like, we'll take your client, we'll take great care of it, of your client for this case, and then we'll send them back because, we don't purport to do everything.
Yeah.
We can't handle all the work for this client, and that I think has really opened the door to a lot of referrals for us and a lot of the work that we do. So, on the other hand, we do have clients who ask us, literally every day, if we can do this or that, corporate transactional type work. And, it's hard to see all that work going out the door too. So it's always trying to balance those sort of two competing interests. My guess is that we'll stay in the business litigation footprint and keep it at that, which I think probably puts some kind of hard cap on how big we ultimately can get. But I feel like there's a real advantage to doing what you know and what you're good at. And, we know that area, we're good at that area. Take a leap of faith and the right person to get us to kind of make that jump into sort of a more full service type firm.
Yeah, to niche or not to niche, it's one of those questions that's difficult to answer. There's pros and cons on both sides, right? Like you said, you don't want to see that business going elsewhere, but because you've niched, you get a lot more business coming in. It's a lot more meaningful business, and it's usually a lot more qualified as well. It's like right up your alley. It's exactly what you do, and so people know you by that.
No, I love getting referrals from big firms because I know it's been, I know some, very smart lawyers thought about it and talked to the client about it and hasn't called me unless there's something really there. And, it's a different dynamic when you're kind of trying to build it out from the ground floor in terms of, your kind of own full service client base.
Yeah. So certainly it sounds like there's definitely a notion of growing and potentially adding or filling out some of the practice areas in the firm. When it comes to marketing and the marketing strategy for getting new clients, sounds like referrals are a big part of it. Letting people know about your niche is a big part of it. We've talked about niching a decent amount already. But what are some marketing strategies that have worked well for you?
Yeah, I think you've hit on a lot of them. I mean, we're largely a word of mouth type firm. We're not a place that's advertised a lot. We have had some success. We revamped the website about a year ago and have done some SEO type work. So we've actually found that's another one that's kind of a plus and minus for me. We get a lot more phone calls. A lot of them are not productive phone calls. On the other hand, we've gotten some good cases, somewhat to my surprise, actually. So that's been kind of an interesting kind of, change for us, from going from really a pure referral-based type, law firm to one that has generated some leads off the internet. And then, I think all of us really mine our, big firm contacts, our alumni network contacts. I think those are the places that we've really found sort of the most kind of long-term success with.
Gotcha. That's great. Yeah. Inbound leads are great, right? We all like them. But it is different than the referrals. So referrals are definitely the best. Word of mouth is the best for sure.
Yeah.
I would say that the next best and a pretty close second is inbound leads. And then the hardest to convert is usually those outbound prospecting leads that you generate or could generate sometimes. Well, cool, Ethan. Hey, I definitely appreciate your time. If someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find you on the internet or elsewhere?
Sure. We're at www.bnsklaw.com. Phone number is 310-593-9890. We'd love to hear from anybody, whether it's lawyers interested in our model or clients or referral sources, any of those things.
All right, fantastic. Thanks so much, Ethan. All right, for everyone else who's watching, if you are looking to grow your law firm, then please consider Array Digital. We focus on SEO, websites, online advertising, and social media to get you more clients. Thanks so much, Ethan.
Sure. Thank you.